David Bowie was the shapeshifter of rock and roll, an artist who turned reinvention into an art form and made transformation look effortless. But behind the personas and brilliance was a man driven by instinct, one who knew when to create and when to walk away. Now, we're diving into the choices that defined him legend, the collaborations he turned down, and the moments that proved why David Bowie is right and was always one step ahead. In 1989, David Bowie walked straight into one of rock's most explosive egos. Guns N' Roses were at the height of their power, wild, unpredictable, and adored by millions. That summer, the band was filming a video for It's So Easy in Los Angeles, and Bowie, curious as ever, decided to stop by. He wasn't there for fame or headlines. He just wanted to see what the new kids on the block were doing. But within minutes, the visit turned into chaos. Axl Rose, GNR's volatile frontman, was already known for his short fuse and public meltdowns. During the shoot, Bowie struck up a conversation with Erin Everly, Axl's then-wife and star of the video. According to multiple reports, it was harmless, friendly even. But to Axl, every glance looked like a threat. Bowie, the suave elder statesman of glam rock, had unwittingly stepped into someone else's storm. The tension broke fast. Witnesses later described shouting, shoving, and a furious Axl accusing Bowie of crossing a line. Bowie, cool as ever, tried to defuse the situation with a smile, but Axl wasn't having it. Within minutes, the two were in a screaming match that stopped the shoot. The tabloids would later call it a fight, but by most accounts, no punches landed, just egos. The story hit the press like wildfire. Axl Rose versus David Bowie. The rock world couldn't believe it. One was the elegant experimental icon who changed music, with Heroes and Ashes to Ashes. The other was the new face of danger, a man who built his career on chaos. And for one bizarre night in Hollywood, their worlds collided. Bowie left the set before things got worse. Axl, still fuming, reportedly told people he'd chased Bowie down the street. Whether that actually happened or not, it didn't matter. The myth was born. Two of rock's biggest personalities had clashed in a scene straight out of a tabloid fever dream. But here's where it gets interesting. A few days later, Axl cooled off. He admitted he might have overreacted. Bowie, never one to hold a grudge, sent a message through friends saying he thought Axl was talented, and maybe just a little high-strung. Within weeks, they buried the hatchet. Bowie was even spotted at another GNR show later that year, standing quietly at the side of the stage, enjoying the music. Still, the damage was done. Any potential collaboration between the two vanished overnight. Imagine it, Bowie's sharp, futuristic style blending with GNR's raw aggression. It could have been fascinating, or catastrophic, but it never happened. And maybe that was for the best. At the time, Bowie was already growing tired of the rock star circus. He had spent the 80s chasing success, riding the wave of Let's Dance and MTV superstardom. The money was great, but the creative spark was fading. By the late 80s, he'd begun to feel like a parody of himself, another celebrity lost in the noise. The Axl Rose incident only reinforced what he already suspected, that fame had turned rock and roll into a machine, chewing up artists and spitting them out. Within months, Bowie walked away from the mainstream. He formed Tin Machine, a loud, unapologetic rock band that stripped away glamour and ego. No makeup, no alter egos, no record label puppeteering, just noise, honesty, and risk. He once said Tin Machine was his way of cleansing himself from fame. To the world, it looked like a step backward. To Bowie, it was liberation. And maybe that's why he didn't chase the spotlight after Axl. He didn't need to. Bowie had seen enough of what unchecked fame could do. The violence, the paranoia, the endless cycle of self-destruction that consumed young stars. In Axl, he saw a reflection of the thing he'd escaped decades earlier, the dangerous side of being worshipped. Years later, when asked about the feud, Axl laughed it off, calling Bowie cool as hell. Bowie, with his trademark grin, once joked that he never fought with Axl Rose, but had met him under interesting circumstances. It was classic Bowie, dry humor layered over hard-earned wisdom. In hindsight, The confrontation wasn't just about two men clashing, it was a symbolic passing of the torch, from the old guard of rock theater to the new generation of chaos. But Bowie had no interest in that fire anymore. He'd learned to survive by stepping out of the flames. The feud faded into rock folklore, a strange footnote in both of their stories. Yet it revealed something essential about Bowie: his radar for danger, his instinct for self-preservation. He could sense when a scene was about to collapse and knew when to step away before it dragged him down. As Guns N' Roses burned hotter, then fell apart, Bowie was already reinventing himself again, quietly shaping the next phase of his life. He wasn't chasing youth or attention, he was chasing meaning. Because while Axl Rose was trying to conquer the world, David Bowie was trying to stay free from it. And this wouldn't be the last time he walked away from something that looked like success. Because the next trap waiting for him was even bigger, and it came with his own name on the cover. By 1983, David Bowie had done what few thought possible. He conquered pop. Let's Dance wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural earthquake. The album sold over 10 million copies, gave him global fame, and turned him into the polished MTV-ready star that the music industry always wanted him to be. But for Bowie, the success didn't feel like victory. It felt like a trap. He'd spent 2 decades reinventing himself: Ziggy, the Duke, the Berlin Poet. But now, he was stuck playing the role of David Bowie, the pop icon. RCA and EMI wanted sequels, the kind of glossy, radio-friendly records that could repeat Let's Dance's success. And for a while, he tried to give them that. The albums Tonight and Never Let Me Down followed, both full of polished production, session musicians, and catchy hooks. But Bowie hated them. Years later, he admitted those records left him feeling hollow, calling that period one of the least creative of his life. He told interviewers he'd lost his way, trapped between artistic curiosity and commercial expectation. The industry wanted hits, Bowie wanted freedom. The two were no longer compatible. That tension came to a head during the 1985 Live Aid concert, rock's biggest global moment. Bowie was scheduled to perform solo, but he joined Mick Jagger for a one-off duet, a remake of Dancing in the Street. On paper, it was perfect. 2 legends, one outrageous idea. But the result? A music video that Bowie later called the most cringe-making video ever made. The awkward choreography, over-the-top outfits, and campy tone became infamous. It was supposed to be iconic. Instead, it became a symbol of how far Bowie had drifted from the raw innovation that made him great. After Live Aid, the offers poured in. Madonna, Michael Jackson's Camp, countless MTV crossover projects. Everyone wanted Bowie to collaborate, to cash in on his name and image. But he started to say no. The more the machine tried to pull him in, the more he backed away. He saw what the music industry had become, a factory of brand deals and celebrity pairings, and it made him uneasy. Bowie wasn't built for that. He was never meant to be a nostalgia act or a corporate mascot. So instead of chasing another hit, he did the unthinkable. In 1988, he formed Tin Machine. No alter ego, no costume, just a loud, no-frills rock band that didn't care about chart positions. To fans, it looked like a midlife crisis. To Bowie, it was a cleansing ritual. He wanted to feel music again, to play in a room where people weren't whispering about marketing strategies. It was a purging, he said later, a chance to be part of a band again, to disappear into the noise. He turned down major collaborations that could have kept him on MTV. No more flashy duets, no more desperate attempts to stay relevant. Tin Machine's records were raw and unpredictable, filled with feedback, rage, and creative freedom. Critics hated them at first, but Bowie didn't care. For the first time in years, he wasn't chasing applause. He was chasing authenticity. Looking back, that decision aged beautifully. While so many 80s icons burned out or faded into nostalgia tours, Bowie quietly rebuilt himself. The pop machine he'd escaped from went on to swallow others, artists who couldn't stop chasing their own biggest hits. But Bowie had already learned that lesson. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of repeating himself. Every no he said in that decade became a kind of creative insurance, protecting him from becoming a parody of his own past. He'd seen it happen to others, and he refused to join them. By walking away from the glossy world of MTV fame, Bowie preserved the part of himself that could still surprise people. He didn't care about being the most famous man in the room. He cared about being the most unpredictable, and in a strange way, that's what made him timeless. Every reinvention after that, from Outside to Heathen, owed something to the courage he found when he said no to the pop machine, because Bowie understood something that few of his peers ever did. The moment you stop risking failure is the moment your art dies. And while the 80s pop world was busy chasing its own reflection, Bowie quietly slipped into the shadows, ready to emerge again, sharper, stranger, and freer than ever. But decades later, another offer would test that instinct one last time, and his answer would prove he hadn't lost it. By the early 2000s, David Bowie had already lived several musical lifetimes. He'd been the alien rock star, the soul singer, the Berlin experimentalist, and the mainstream icon. But now, in his final act, he was focused on something far simpler and far harder: silence. He didn't want to repeat himself, and he refused to become a monument to his own myth. That's why, when Coldplay reached out, hoping for a dream collaboration, Bowie didn't hesitate. Chris Martin, a lifelong fan, had written a song he wanted Bowie to sing on. The band was at the peak of their fame, and a feature from Bowie could have created a generational crossover. But when Martin played him the track, Bowie listened, paused for a moment and said, "It's not a very good song, is it?" Then he turned it down. That moment became legend, not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. Bowie's refusal wasn't arrogance. It was instinct. He had spent decades navigating the thin line between innovation and imitation, and by this stage, he understood that not every collaboration was worth doing, especially when it meant risking his artistic credibility. He wasn't looking for another hit. He was looking for truth in his art, something that resonated deeper than charts or headlines. Bowie had no interest in lending his name to someone else's fame. He'd seen how nostalgia could drain the life out of great artists, how legends became brands, and rebellion turned into marketing. He wanted no part of that. During this time, the offers didn't stop. Major tours, lucrative reunion deals, anniversary performances. Bowie said no to them all. Fans begged for a Ziggy comeback, but he refused to resurrect the past. To him, art was about movement. Repeating what had already been done was creative death. In a rare 2003 interview, he said, "I don't think you can really go back. I don't even like the idea of looking back." Instead, he focused on the future. In 2013, Bowie made a surprise return with The Next Day, his first album in a decade. No interviews, no promotion, just a single that appeared out of nowhere and shattered the internet. It wasn't nostalgia, it was defiance. The cover itself mocked his own past, literally placing a white square over the iconic Heroes artwork. Bowie was saying, "Yes, I remember who I was, but I'm not that anymore." Then came Black Star in 2016, his final masterpiece. Released just 2 days before his death, it was his last and most profound statement. A haunting meditation on mortality, transformation, and art's ability to outlive the artist. Every lyric, every image in those final videos felt intentional, controlled, deeply Bowie. He turned death itself into a performance, the ultimate act of creative authorship. Looking back, the Coldplay refusal wasn't just a funny anecdote. It was part of a pattern. Every no he gave in his later years was about maintaining control of his story. Bowie understood that immortality in pop culture doesn't come from staying visible. It comes from leaving at the right moment before the world starts rewriting you. While others chased the past, reunion tours, legacy duets, tribute shows, Bowie kept reinventing until the end. He didn't want to be remembered as a museum piece, but as a living idea, constantly evolving, never safe. In the end, his final years were his most dignified. He had outlasted the fame machine he once ruled. He had walked away from the spotlight on his own terms. When he finally left this world, the silence he left behind felt deafening. But it was the silence of completion. So when people remember that line, "It's not a very good song, is it?" they don't hear arrogance. They hear clarity. A man who'd spent 50 years listening to the noise of the industry, finally trusting his own quiet judgment. So let me ask you this: if success meant losing your creative soul, would you still take the deal? Or would you have the nerve to say no like David Bowie?